Indivisible. Okay, thank you, everybody. And so at this time, I would entertain a motion to recess open session and convene executive session for discussion and or action regarding those items of business exempt from open meetings under Rhode Island General Law 42-46-4 and Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A1, employee job performance, superintendent. Superintendent has been notified, including of his right to have discussion in open session and has defined. Do I have a motion? So moved by Jean, second Kevin. All those in favor, show of hands, please. Aha, now it's like,
I don't like what I say, is this.
all right. Thank you, everybody. At the time, I'd entertain a motion to seal the executive session minutes of August 18th, 2026, and I'll disclose that no votes were taken in executive session. So moved by Jean, seconded by Kevin. All those in favor, show of hands, please. Okay, that's our seal. Next item on our agenda is public comment. This is for anyone who would like to make a comment on something that is not on our agenda. Julie, do we have anyone signed up for public comment tonight? Oh, 11. Yep, we're popular tonight. Here. Yeah. So first we have Councilwoman Cornthal.
Yeah.
If you'd like to take the podium, tell us who you are, where you're from.
Sure. Karen Cornwall, Clyde Brookfield Fort. I'm here to speak about the AC.
Sure.
It's just been a topic of discussion all over social media and my inbox and phone. I don't blame anyone for being skeptical about the air conditioning system. Frankly, regardless of what is said tonight or from now on, I expect people to remain skeptical until they see how the actual system works. However, we did discuss the HVAC system last night's town council meeting, and I wanted to share what was discussed. First, it is important to understand that many of these decisions were made by the school construction committee, which includes school and town officials, parents, and individuals with significant expertise in the school construction, with Jacob sitting right here. The committee included Allison, Will, Brian, first Brian, now Tom, Wager, Mike Donegan, Andy Nada, Helen Smith, teachers, parent, and Jacob Gray and Bob LeGlenne, who are experts, and Bob Wilmot, who's not here. There were difficult choices and compromises throughout the process, including the decision about air conditioning. Everyone would have preferred full air conditioning throughout the buildings. However, after listening to experts and considering the trade-offs, the school committee unanimously chose a hybrid HVAC system rather than eliminate or reduce important parts of the project, such as the cafeteria. There was a discussion of the cafeteria plus a gym, combined, or funding for Meadowbrook. The experts involved in this project explained that the system was designed to provide comfortable environment based on the size and use of each space. Here are some additional details. All common areas, including gyms, libraries, cafeterias, IT spaces, and administrative offices, over 60% will have what you think of traditional electronic air conditioning. In the remaining areas, there will be a hybrid system which will use tempered air. The expectation is that these spaces will be comfortable on the vast majority of days. For what it's worth, the new high school in East Providence uses a similar system. That is a 4-story building. Today, we have spoken with both the superintendent in East Providence and high school principal who have kids in school. And they told us that the buildings are comfortable. There are no complaints. They haven't heard from parents. They haven't heard from teachers. The only thing the principal mentioned was after a hot, long weekend, 4th floor may take some time to cool. The system that we're putting in is also not a permanent limitation. The schools will be electric ready and solar ready, giving us the flexibility in the future if we decide that expanding the air conditioning system makes sense. Frankly, given the changes that we are seeing in our climate, I would not be surprised if additional cooling is necessary. I understand the skepticism, and I don't expect anyone to simply take my word for it. Ultimately, the buildings will have to prove themselves. I just wanted to share this information and the reasoning behind it so that people will understand why we got the system we did. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have, I hope I don't say this wrong, Bill Penoyer.
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bill Penoyer. I live in the Sun Valley neighborhood. Unhappily, we only have one student that goes to school. Though the EMT drivers are very well familiar with my neighborhood over the years. Some years ago, those 25 years ago, the executive committee of the American Legion created a program that a nationwide effort be made to commemorate, which we now call Patriot Day, to remember those lost on September 11th. I've taken on the responsibility to lead this effort at the Veterans Memorial Cemetery. And this will be the 24th year that we have done this, and the 25th year of the anniversary. Due to this, the General Assembly has passed legislation that passed earlier this year, calling on schools throughout the state to honor Patriot Day with a very simple thing. Just take a few times to recede from life, lower the flag, and remember those fallen. One of the highlights of that time in Exeter is to be called Ringing the Four Fives, which is an old system that the fire department used to remember a fireman lost in the line of duty. And I was happy to see that you have a bell downstairs, which would be a perfect spot for this. And for that reason, I'm asking that you would disseminate information to all the teachers in school that they begin to honor Patriot Day in such a manner. I think one of the whole keys of Patriot Day is to keep it local. Allow people just an opportunity to recede from their normal routines and honor those people who are lost. And I appreciate the opportunity to come. Walking in this middle school tells me that North Kingstown has a lot of catching up to do as far as the middle school is concerned. So thank you very much for the opportunity. And here's some copies for all of you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I think just Audrey Lombardo, legal counsel for the school committee. So because this is not on the agenda, I would just suggest that either the superintendent can take this up administratively and take action, or or it can be referred to the policy subcommittee as something to consider policy wise.
Wonderful. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Last but not least, we have you. Are you good?
I don't really have a lot of questions. I'm happy to help.
Okay, so we have an update later, so if there's anything we can ask you. Thanks, Jacob. All right. Do we have anyone online wanting to make a public comment? Nope. Okay. If we can populate all my papers. Oh, I gave it to you. How much did I upload? I gave it to you. Okay. Next we have approval of minutes. We have two different sets of minutes. The first are regular executive session minutes from July 14th, 2026. Will was absent for that, so I would entertain a motion to approve the regular and executive session minutes of July 14th, 2026. Moved by Jean, second by Kevin. I did see you though, Claire.
Yeah.
All those in
Oh, yeah.
favor of approving those minutes? Show of hands, please. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Great. Minutes are approved. And our next set, we had neither Will or Melissa. So I would entertain a motion to approve regular minutes of July 29th, 2026. So moved by Tim, seconded by Jean. All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? Great. Those minutes are approved. Very much. Now we have moved on to our superintendent's report, so I'll turn it over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Ms. Powell. I have some updates since the last time we met, which was back in July, monthly meeting scheduled here for the summer. So obviously a lot has been happening here throughout the summer, and we are 1 week away from opening the school year. I am going to take these a little bit out of order, just based on the ones that I think may lead to possible discussion. So first up is on the opening of the 2026-27 school year. And we are 1 week away. We're looking forward to welcoming all staff back for the new school year, next Tuesday, August 25th. The following day on Wednesday, the 26th, will be another day for staff and, focus on professional development activities. And then it's August 27th, which is a Thursday. We will be welcoming students in grades 1 through 12 back and kindergarten students on Monday, August 31st. So our 2026-27 school calendar can always be found on the link on our district website. And I did also want to mention, the information is going out at all levels regarding schedules and classroom teachers. So it's that exciting time of year. One of the last key pieces will be bus routes. Those are scheduled to be released on Thursday. We will certainly send information out to the community, but I believe Ocean State is putting the finishing touches on just, they like to make sure they drive the runs and make sure everything goes as planned. But those should be out by the end of this week as well. Stop me if anyone has questions on anything as I go. The next thing I want to actually skip down to D and cover the personnel report. So again, it's been about a month since we met, quite a few new hires as we're looking forward to opening the school year. So we will be welcoming Kristen Allen as a school nurse teacher at Hannaford. Lily Brown will be a special education teacher at Hannaford. Haley Banyea, a paraeducator at Hannaford. At Cole, we have Mary Capuano as the new library media specialist, and Jalen Chafee will be a music teacher. Also at Hannaford, Savannah Desert will be a special education teacher. Emily Gibson will be a special education teacher at Eldridge. We've hired a new custodian for Cole, Kyle Giard. Doug Jorgensen as a new custodian at East Greenwich High School. Nicole Keimer will be our new school psychologist. Callie Lacey will be a new grade 1 teacher at Frenchtown. Minley Lucier, paraeducator at Hannaford. Bethany Petrick, library media specialist at Frenchtown. And Callie Schutter, paraeducator at Hannaford. So looking forward to welcoming all of those individuals to our staff for the start of the school year. And we have a few other positions that we will be finishing up here over the next week. New staff will actually be joining us this Friday before everything kicks off next week. We'll have a new staff orientation in the morning on Friday. We did receive a few resignations as well since our last meeting. So Mary Asermley, paraeducator at Frenchtown. Karen Brienzi, paraeducator at Frenchtown. Linda Gaskill, library and media specialist at Frenchtown. Michelle Lambert, paraeducator at Cole, and Aries Ruff, paraeducator at East Greenwich High School, are all moving on for other opportunities. I think in Linda's case, she is ready to, I don't know if it's quite retirement, but certainly move on from our roles. So we wish all those individuals well. Okay, then next I'm going to cover the school construction and redistricting updates. So these are just regular updates that we have under my superintendent's report for each meeting. So a few general updates first. Just wanted to mention, as everyone can see when they drive by any of our locations, that the construction at Hannaford, Frenchtown, and East Greenwich High School is all continuing on schedule. We've made quite a bit of progress on all projects throughout the summer. We are looking forward to the continued progress throughout this upcoming school year with the anticipation of opening our new completed buildings and renovated areas for the 2027-28 school year. As always, regular information and updates on our school construction projects can be found on the school construction link on our district website. Also did just want to mention on redistricting, we had, after much work last year, the committee voted on a plan in May. That information has been disseminated publicly several times, also available on our district website. And what we had mentioned, which we will make sure happens, is later this fall, once we open the school year, get through everything with that for the current school year, we'll be sending out individual mailings to any family scheduled to have elementary students next year as to what the assignments are, so that there are no questions there, or people can ask questions if they have them. So since we're on the school construction topic, and I know Ms. Corinthal spoke earlier during public comment, thank you for those comments. I did just want to mention, I did attend a meeting today with our design team in anticipation of a school construction committee meeting that we're going to have next month. Again, with some of the questions that have arisen. I know the town council took them up last night. But there are key differences between the system that is in place here at Cole Middle School, our newest building until the new schools come online, and the systems that will be in place at Hannaford and Frenchtown. They are different systems. There have been a lot of updates in the technology for these systems since the construction at Cole. So we are going to take this up on the school construction committee again in September. And then from there, I'm sure we'll be passing along any information to the school committee. I don't know if anyone else has anything that they want to say there. Okay. Great. So then next, I'm going to cover the student handbook item. So you have the link. We are making sure that the committee has had an opportunity to review these handbooks and all of the updates. So throughout the summer, this starts at the building level with all of our principals. They then come up to central office, myself, Mr. Belucci, Mr. McCarchia, of all get our eyes on certain things. And then they have all gone to our district legal counsel as well. So anything that you see there has gone through all of those updates. We've moved, as with many things in this day and age, it's a completely electronic process. So there is still time to make any last minute revisions or additions that anyone would like to make. I do know that later in the agenda, we're going to be at least discussing, if not approving, a new policy on e-bikes and other motorized devices. So that would be something that would certainly make its way into the handbook. There's also a second read on the revisions to our device policy and room there to make any additional statements that we want on that. So I just want to make sure that if there's anything else from the committee that anyone would like us to consider here over the next week before the school year opens.
Anybody?
Okay, thank you. All right, and then lastly, we had reserved time. We're going to do it under my superintendent's report. There is no action necessarily needed on this, but we wanted to make sure that the committee was fully aware. There had been some discussion towards the end of the school year and over the summer on changes that the high school had been working on for its unified class offerings, which are a great thing that we have in place at East Branch High School. Those opportunities are still going to exist for students, but there are some changes that had to be implemented. So Dr. Page, Mr. McCarchio have put together an update based on those changes and other discussions they've had with families throughout the summer. So all you. Oh, sorry.
Oh. Yeah, the owl.
Oh, sweet.
It's like, oh.
I think everyone can see it.
Yeah.
But we'll take care of that if we need to while we're done.
All right.
Unless you can't see it.
Members of the. Excited to be here to. High school, Dr. Page here with me, of course. I think out of the gate, one of the things we want to be clear about is we're still finding extensive opportunities for all students to participate. I think I also need to start by apologizing for the community, the school community, for the parents, because there were some issues around this topic. I thought things were clear that had gone out. Clearly, what ended up on social media and other places in the community was very contrary to where we were headed in this process. I'll also be honest with you and tell you that as we started to changed this programming over the course of the spring in particular. I had moments approached Dr. Page and said, I have some doubts this is going to be the appropriate thing to do for kids. I think we have now landed in a place where we're able to provide equal opportunity to what was there previously, and also we opened up some other opportunities for students that really are following a good progression with a few of our students. We've also met at this point with several individual families. We're open to doing that with any other family that has questions about how their children are going to be participating in core classes, electives, also how to resource for self-contained classrooms. So I also think it's really important to ground this conversation in some key terms today. I'm not going to read through all of these for you. Your handout has a complex and simple version, universal designs. If you flip it over, it's a simpler set of key terms. It is really important tonight to remember that we're going to be speaking very specifically about the general assessment, which is 99% of all students, starts in third grade with broadcast. That moves into the SAT and SAT in high school. We have students with IEPs that the vast majority of our IEPs are also aligned to the general assessment. Your Island Force basically a mirror of the Common Core. States have taken on their own nuanced versions of them, but they're almost identical. The other piece is alternate assessment for BLM standards. I'm actually going to go forward for a second. You look at this handout that you have, I want to make it clear too that Rhode Island core standards and DLM standards, although they are designed for different populations of students, they're very, very similar. So one of the foundations of our unified courses was being able to align the courses themselves to both sets of standards and assign credit based on whatever was in someone's IEP. So if you had Rhode Island core standards in your IEP, that's how the credit was issued. If you had DLM standards, that's how the credit was issued. This is kind of one of the sticking points we ran into this year. This kind of folds into the new graduation requirements. So we're not going to be able to run courses that exact same way, but these students will still have their IEPs that are aligned to the same basic standards. Dr. Page is going to take us through the next pieces.
So I think it's important that we recognize fully just how much this program has meant to our families, the faculty, the staff, Neil, myself, some of the members of this committee who were involved in the actual construct of this when we were talking about it in the 23-24 academic year. We're graduating our first cohort of students from this unified program. So tonight, what we want to do is be very clear that the underlying tenets of unified programming are still very much at the core of what we're going to be doing. The program has had to evolve to align with the changes in the graduation requirements coincident with the class of 2028, but then also where our students are in terms of their progression at this point. So that is really our intent this evening. And if we have met that objective, then hopefully we can allay some of the concerns and, as Neil has said, clarify some of the narrative that was out there, and some of that was a void in the communication that came out, and some misinterpretation. So that's what I'm saying.
All right, and then, just to review what inclusion is and what it's not. It's not a program, it's not a course, it's not a commitment to just continue past practice. We are really centered around creating meaningful opportunities for every student to learn, belong, participate, grow alongside their peers. That has to evolve not only with best practices, but also, changing guidance is a big factor in this case this evening. The regulations that are associated with that changing guidance. And then the individual needs of our kids. If you look at RIDE's blueprint for special education, we talk about a lot about rightful presence, which is you're not only being included, but being able to see yourself in everything that happens as a student. School being part of that, owning it. It's a term that I really like, and I do feel like our offerings are going to continue to support that rightful presence for all of our diverse learners. We're going to have some key terms interspersed here, but some of this is critical as well. And I think the vast majority of you probably already know this, but accommodations change how students access things, but learning targets and standard expectations stay the same. Modification, which is far less common within an IEP than accommodations. It's changing the what. Changing the outcome. So it might be something as simple as saying students are going to be able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide positive and negative numbers. A modification for some students, maybe they're going to add, subtract, multiply, and divide only whole numbers. That's changing the target, but the foundational skills that are there are also very similar. Didn't take this.
Yeah, we can jump in.
Go ahead.
So what hasn't changed? Obviously, you've heard me talk about the underlying tenets of our commitment to every student. Meaningful and inclusive education, social experience. If you recall, we started the Unified Academic Program based on our success and our commitment to what we were doing on the athletic side. Peer mentors. We have 10 to 12 peer mentors already scheduled to be supporting our students in the upcoming year. That has not changed. If anything, it's expanded. The vetting process has gotten a little bit more rigorous in terms of what the expectations are of the students. They are going to be firmly embedded in all the experiences that you're going to be hearing about more fully from Neil in the upcoming year. And as Neil will talk about, some of the individualized supports will be in place based on those IEP needs. And obviously, our target is always to prepare students beyond the walls of East Greenwich High School. And what that looks like is very different for every student. And that's where this program has a need to evolve based on where the students are, because they are now seniors. And they will be beyond our walls shortly.
When we talk about inclusion too, we also want to differentiate peer mentors who are students that are trained to support students with disabilities and specifically either being inserted into classes for that reason or right, that's really the gist of it. And we have peer models, which are general education students that are, core courses are there just in order to promote overall diversity, equity, and inclusion. So a lot of our Rhode Island Core Standards Alliance courses that our students with IEPs participate in, 60–80% peer models, some peer models. Let's see. Yeah. So what has changed? Each course must be aligned to one set of standards. So it really was our vision. As much as we would like to continue to run unified the way we had basically, we received some very direct guidance from RIDE. I also want to be clear that RIDE did not tell us to dismantle unified courses, but functionally we cannot provide guidance. That was the other thing. South I was blaming RIDE for having to take this program apart. We were actually dismantling because of funding issues, staffing. Neither of those things are true. Rhode Island Core Standards students cannot be included in DLM courses for credit, but DLM students can be included in modified Rhode Island Core Standard courses via modified curriculum. This is where it gets very nuanced. Sort of like a rectangle is not a square. So what we've done in the end, some of the Rhode Island Core Standard aligned courses have been deliberately designed from the ground up to be a little more foundational and skills based and key content areas like mathematics and ELA. In turn, it makes it much simpler for us to further modify those courses. So we have a starting point that's a little more universally designed to allow our DLM alternate assessed students to participate in those classes. And those classes will have peer models, peer mentors to some degree. And actually, when you look at the level of restriction and least restrictive environment, our unified courses, in a sense, were more restrictive because they were not. It was only a handful of peer mentors and then all students with IEPs. There is more diversity in these new offerings, and the curriculum is going to end up looking very similar to some of our more significant students. The peer mentor ratios have changed across offerings. There may be more or less depending on whether or not they're supporting something like an elective or a core course. There's ample opportunity for peer models. And our families have the opportunity to have pretty much as much inclusion as they want. It does reach a point where some of our significant disabilities where kids need pull-out intensive skills work, either one-on-one or in small groups. That was happening during Unified, and I think that's one of the other misconceptions that's out there. those kids were going to unified courses, but they were also in a self-contained classroom for part of the day, working on foundational skills and very specific IT goals. That one actually also been the classroom. So there's lots of access to improve that will happen. Not diluting that access.
So let me give you a little bit about the genesis of this and backstory. So during the implementation of the new college and career readiness graduation requirements, which are commensurate with the class of 2028, Rhode Island Department of Education was doing a complete review of our course catalog. They had very specific questions about our unified academic courses. They concluded that our unified academic model could not continue in its current form for students who are not participating in Rhode Island's alternate assessment model. That's the DLM. That hybrid mashup approach that we were doing in a very thoughtful way could no longer support two different groups of students. So historically, I think it's helpful if I kind of describe the general profile of the students that were in the academic programming. We had students who qualified for alternate assessment, right? That's the DLM. We had general education peer partners who were in there, supporting either social development or academic support. They were receiving elective credit for participating in those classes. And then we had a third group of students with IEPs who were enrolled in unified classes for core academic credit, but did not qualify for alternate assessment.
Rhode Island core standards align.
Yeah. So the RIDE directive change applies to that latter group. So under current RIDE guidelines, students can no longer receive core academic credit for courses that are not aligned with the Common Core state standards. That group of students was a disproportionate number of the students that were in those unified classes. And that's what brought us to where we are today.
The number is so small that
Yeah, we can't discuss the
it's significantly changed the flavor of the courses overall and how they're offered. What they were restricted. All right, so here's our updated programming. This may be the most important handout we could have. Still want to discuss the previous special education models, current ones. Previously, this is a bit simplified. We had the resource model, so those are the kids with Rhode Island core standards aligned IEPs. Where you have a resource teacher pushing into 4 classes. There's also a resource block built for the kids' schedules, so they're only with kids with IEPs for additional foundational skills work. Our unified classes that we've explained, those will align in both sets of standards, have the peer mentors pushing in. Then we're able to give credit for those courses relative to one set of standards or another. Then, of course, we have our life skills classes, which is we traditionally looked at these as self-contained. They also include a lot of opportunities for both inclusion and diverse inclusion. It's also worth mentioning the vast majority of our unified students. We had a cohort of students moving through, and they really are at a point on the continuum where they're really starting to focus on their transition elements and community elements, which requires them to be out of the building, out of the classroom, and truly working on community-based life skills opportunities. Sure.
Okay, that's cool. Reverse inclusion, could you just expand on that short one of it, because it's not excluded.
Yeah, and I think, another one of the foundational pieces here is like, we always think of the least restrictive
Yeah.
environment as a student, i.e. being with all general education students or neurotypical peers. That's not always the least restrictive environment. Some students have levels of regulation and large background visuals. So we take our students without disabilities who push into it. That's reversed.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Can I just answer quickly? Pat, you said a second ago, you can't disclose what the N is. I don't quite follow. I mean,
If I told you
why
how
couldn't
many.
we say there are 12 alt assessed
If
kids?
there's under 10 students, you're not supposed to be, or really under 10%, but in this case, it's even under 10, you're not supposed to be discussing those students for privacy purposes, because they could be identified.
Mhm.
It's the law.
10 is the threshold.
it's really 10%, but in this case, it's less than 10 itself. And so that's the law that we can't, even when we do, for example, like when we at our iPad data and stuff like that, if we have groups that have less than that number, that's why we end up with like the asterisk. As opposed to, being able to identify those groups.
All right, so, so that's what was available the last. Prior to that, the kids that were served by this unified model were mostly self-contained, and they had some interspersed inclusion opportunities and electives in other areas. There was some reverse inclusion going on there. This year, our offerings are again the great resource program, which is Rhode Island folks in blind resource leaders, teaching with content area specialists, typical classrooms. Some of those students going to a resource block for parts of the day. Those are typically thought of as a more mild, moderate IEPs. Some kids that have like minor learning disabilities, ADHD, they require specially designed instruction. But for the most part, they're following a college course track. Then we have what we're calling resource with advanced support. And these are those classes I mentioned earlier. They are completely Rhode Island core standards aligned and approved. But they foundationally start in a different place that allows modifications to happen with a little more fluidity. And that is where we're bringing in our former unified students for pretty extensive inclusion opportunities. The last thing we want is a student sitting in an Algebra 2 class who can't understand a single word that's being said. They may be working on something that's appropriate and even aligned with the coursework that spiraled back 7 years, but that's not meaningful participation. Not participate in a discussion or work with other students. We need to have a separate adult with them. So this is our solution to avoiding that sort of situation. And our current life skills program is going to continue to grow. Now I think we're going to mention a couple slides up that we have a transition specialist now. Full-time SID teacher, very thoughtfully devoted to building out our transition program and transition opportunities. It's Veronica Crow. She's also been a teacher at high school for several years. She has a real passion for this work. And that is her only job this year, is to make sure these kids get out into the community and locally, which is a big piece of this. That is a big problem with our existing transition opportunities. Don't want kids who are going to land in this community full time, perhaps for the rest of their lives, and have them travel an hour to go to work. It's not necessary.
So is it possible just to summarize what the impact on staffing is? We need a little more of this and a little less of that. I mean, in terms of FTEs and skills.
Overall, it's been staffing
Neutral.
Now, had we decided to somehow run the unified courses exactly the way they were, alongside some of these resource pluses and other opportunities, aside from looking quite different just because of the sheer number of students that were or were not in there, would have had a staff issue. So, people have said this comes down to staff and budget. At some point, everything does. But it has to be a thoughtful solution that still provides that equity. Anyway, so those are the basic pieces of this. I don't have any model-based one.
Does this make it, is anybody disadvantaged in this? Because it's clear why things have to change. Graduation requirements or standards, so that all makes sense. Are there less opportunities for peer mentors now? Is anybody?
I think it looks different, but as far as the amount of time they're able to participate as mentors, the amount of exposure our students with disabilities have to peer models and mentors, staying. Now, when you have multiple special education models trying to push inclusion, there's always some slight disadvantage to somebody in some area of their IE. Because you've got a student who's pushing in because they need the social opportunity experience, but they may be highly distractible. Technically, they might learn better one-on-one in a self-contained setting, but they don't want to have them in that scenario.
Sure. And did you say, does this, I don't know if I got this right, you made a reference to, does this allow more life skills students to get outside the building more?
We're going to talk about
Yeah,
that.
we'll
That's
talk
actually
about
the
that.
next slide.
And what's interesting is the group of students that we created the unified program for, they're all in a very similar state with the Christian program. Even neurotypical peers.
Yeah.
It's very selective.
Yes, so there is an application process, so students, students seek it out, it is listed in the program of studies. There's an interview process, there's an essay, they're set. We sit down with them and go through what the expectations are, giving mini lessons, commitment letters. They actually have regular check-ins to make certain that they are modeling the skills, reinforcing what we want to see. They also have deliverables. They are getting credit. So it's a very extensive process.
And have you seen a lot of interest in kids wanting to participate?
Very much so, it's going up. We've got a dozen right now. We've had more than that apply, but our initial vetting has brought us down to a 4 of a dozen.
We're trying to avoid things, frankly, like, hey, that you get this experience, it looks great on an application, you know, that's a secondary impact. That's not the primary driver.
So I think we've talked about this, the student experience, and this speaks to what you were asking, Ms. Venus. Balance of academics, peer mentors, either through that reverse inclusion model, which we're going to talk about, in some of the core content in the elective offerings, those individual supports will be there, whether it's a paraeducator, whether it's the co-teachers who are in the classroom, and we've got a very strong eye towards that transition. The next slide is really how this gets operational. We gave a lot of thought to how we were structuring the schedule for these students. We have in effect taken 3 contiguous blocks in their schedule, which is a little bit over 3 hours, which would allow a student to go out into the community, have some meaningful experience. Also, as part of that, we are heavily focused on durable skills. So you'll hear about some of the soft skills, we're calling them durable skills, and that's really the new nomenclature around this.
Previously, in order to get that kind of block out in the community, would have been missing some sort of course academic, that's this is the change this year being course blocks.
So we're excited about how this is going to work. We've also had some students who have indicated that they would welcome the opportunity to go out into the community, into the workplace, are typically developing students to actually guide. Obviously, that is something that we need to further vet in terms of liability, get our legal counsel involved in it. But it's very similar to a work-based learning and construct that you would see in a CT program, right? So we're very excited that students are thinking now, like what can you do to help in that transition to that studying work? So there's a lot of positives to all of this. We would have gotten to something like this point anyways, just based on where the students were progressing in their academic career, right? The nuance and the overlay was obviously the directive from RIDE regarding our core content areas.
So this is the transition specialist. It's highly related to those 3-hour blocks. And I'm not ashamed to say that I had to bring another very obvious thought. I intentioned to have a community band here for seniors district, and then also services. Surprise to me, anyone 18 plus that has a disability. So our students, many of the students we're referring to have or will be turning 18 very near future. So it's another opportunity. And not only will that senior band pick the kids up and take them to the grocery store and other places, there's opportunity for those peer mentors to also be included in that mode of transportation and get to those opportunities. You also get our transportation agreement with the town, which was a slow burn last year, but we now have several people that will have their chauffeur licenses and be driving those vehicles. Some of the limitation last year was we only had an hour, one period with kids. You gotta go pick up the vehicle at Parks and Rec, you gotta pick the kids up, take them somewhere, and get them back. The returning vehicle is not necessarily part of that block, because that stuff all has to be picked up, watching. So we're kind of moving from a lot of outsourced opportunities for transition to more internal and variable in-house. Certainly going to be more cohesive. Yeah, and then this is the other big thing, and I mentioned it earlier. All of these students have always had some level of self-contained classroom work. Frankly, it's dictated by their IEPs and goals. Some of their goals are so discrete and specific, there's no way to really address them, even in a well-differentiated, broader classroom environment. So they've always had periods of time when they worked on really specific reading and math and life skills. Some of that is linked to their career development plans as they get older. A lot of these kids will be with us until age 22. We did that transition cycle. And it's functional literacy, applied math, practical and digital elements, and going back to those Rhode Island core standards courses that we mentioned earlier that were foundationally designed ground up differently. There's a lot of functional elements to that real world application that lends itself to this life skills connection.
So the diverse courses, as Neil was mentioning, we have some Common Core aligned electives that will fully support our students who have life skills, who are not on the ultimate assessment path. Speech and comp skills, very contextualized. You're learning how to engage with small groups and work settings, phone presentations, interviews. You're learning to write for purpose, whether it's emails, whether it's cover letter, right? Business communication. And that goes back to those, what quality, those firm, durable skills that we want to develop in students.
No, I mean, this is sort of,
Getting
but again, all of these students will be participating in included academics, some full out academics, they're gonna have elective opportunities, some of those are highly specialized.
No, and we were planning on shifting some electives anyways, as you know, East Branch High School is an active construction zone. So we actually expanded some of our art electives because we can no longer do our artery sculpture classes. So we're actually doing sculpture, we created Art Around the World class. We've got a supported Spanish class now for students who may not meet that 2-year requirement, but like have exposure to the language. So we have been very thoughtful in terms of expanding the electives in a very thoughtful way, not only responsive to our facility restrictions, but also in terms of the reality of the students and where they are in their growth journey.
And then, we're gonna plan to update the school committee further on this, because I don't think we've heard the last of it. That's a good thing at this point, so there's a lot to potentially celebrate there, there's a lot of learning growth that happen as well. But we're gonna provide progress reports, we've already had a family forum opportunity, and they see that. There will be regular communication with those families that are happening. Our hope is truly that after school gets launched and they start seeing how the different pieces fit together, kids are coming home happy. That this will all get kind of pushed to the background, build our program.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate that. I know there was some confusion when it came before us. And so I appreciate you addressing the community concerns at the beginning of Mr. Marcaccio and for giving us the detailed explanation I think we needed, because for people that are not involved with alternate assessment or IEPs on a regular basis, those nuances are very, I think, easily missed, and so
It's
I
one of those
appreciate that.
confusing things I've gone through in this role. Like I said, I was upset a few times. Like, I think doesn't smell right. And, in the end, it actually has turned out, I think, to be really meaningful for broad cross section of our students.
Well, I think Dr. Page said the most important thing, just being like, it wasn't about the specific program. There was a goal for students in creating the program. And so, as long as you keep that goal front and center, finding a way to continue to deliver that, I think is important. But I appreciate you both taking the time to explain it to us, because I know when it came to us from the community, not all of us are familiar with how even the unified program works for every student. And so, having a better understanding, anytime we have a better understanding of what is going on in the classroom with students, we appreciate it. So thank you very much for that.
And this doesn't, athletics are part of the BEP, right? So this doesn't change.
Our unified athletics remain the same.
Yeah,
There's not a single change to the after school programs or extended programs.
Yeah.
So thank you, Dr. Page and Ms. Marcaccio. Thought that was important information for us to clarify as those changes are getting ready. And that concludes my superintendent's report.
I think Claire had just one question.
Yeah, it's not as much, but I really just wanted to say thank you. I appreciate both the humility that you all have brought to this and sort of like the transparency. And the responsiveness that you provide. I will speak, I mean, I can say. The emotional, like when you hear something's changing that you understand is good, it's almost like I shut down, people shut down, and it's hard to listen, it's hard to think. And you all were very patient with those of us who were kind of in that state and explaining it in all different kinds of ways. Honestly, that square rectangle thing is very helpful, but putting it into different frameworks, it just shows that you're excellent educators. And I also wanted to just say that I appreciate two things. One, that community thing I know is really exciting. And your point about 7 periods does not make a meaningful community opportunity is really powerful. And sometimes these things are almost like when there's an explosion or a forest fire and things start to grow. You don't want the fire, but the growth is kind of cool, and that's kind of what we can see in these things. And also the fact is, I just really appreciate Superintendent, your willingness to kind of say things that are can be like nuanced. Like sometimes the students need to be in a small environment in order to do some hard, dark, deep kind of learning that is more difficult, and it's like a large room. And it reminds me, I don't know if I have this for when I studied to be a sign language interpreter, that the sign for mainstreaming from the hearing world was, that was what we used to call it, mainstreaming, was like this. But some of my deaf friends would sign it like this, because this is what it felt like. So it was the stream and then it was me underneath the stream. It was not parallel. And so I think that's something that is good to remember. I've appreciated that sort of a visual and that I'm like, oh, this feels great to me. This is not what it feels like.
Yeah, mainstreaming and inclusion.
Well, yes, and this was 1,000 years ago. And full disclosure, I dropped out of the interpreter training program. But we made some great friends and learned a little bit about just what it's like to be like that sometimes a big, open, welcoming space can be really great for some things, and you can get lost in it. And that's a powerful thing to think about. So thank you all very much. I'm super excited about the dancing. And the town's partnership.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on. Thank you both very much. So we have a long list of action items because one meeting a month in the summer, so we'll get going on those. So first, I will entertain a motion to approve changes to the 2026-2027 East Greenwich High School Program of Studies Readiness Pathway Proposal. Everyone had the proposal sort of cheat sheet, I'll call it, in your packet. So I'll entertain a motion, and if anyone has any questions, take them. Motion. Anyone? So moved by Kevin?
I'm super sorry.
Moved by Claire. All right, does anyone have any questions on the proposal?
And I will just say, before we get to questions, this will also get turned over to Dr. Page. Different than our last discussion on, the changes to unified programming. We're still looking to offer those important opportunities to students, just making some changes. This next item and why it's an action item is there are some allowable changes now that will have, course offering and curriculum changes for students. And so we're connecting this back to the program of studies. And the one commonality here is this is all tied into the new graduation requirements for the class of 2028. So I just wanted to be clear on that.
Does anyone have any comments or questions about the readiness pathway proposal? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the proposal, show of hands, please. Approved. Thank you. Thank you. Next, I would entertain a motion to approve a memorandum of agreement with the East Greenwich Custodians and Maintenance Association of NERI and NEA regarding vacation time calculation. So moved by Jean, seconded by Kevin. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Anyone at all about this MOA?
Just for a brief explanation, this is really the custodial union doing us a favor. We came to them with a concern that we had employees who were leaving prior to retirement that would utilize all of their vacation, and we had no way of capturing that after that December date. And so we expressed to them that this was a concern because we had people, who really owed us vacation time that we couldn't recoup. And they listened and were really good partners, and we, came to the table, had a meeting of the minds, and were able to work something out. So I want to give a lot of credit to them because they didn't have to do this. They could have just said, too bad, and they didn't. They were, thoughtful, and I think we've tried to be thoughtful partners to them. And this is a time when, other times when we come to you and say, we're trying to make a good faith effort, I think those good faith efforts have now, been reciprocated and in a really nice working relationship. So this is something that is really helpful to the district and also will help Maggie and the payroll folks, and just, it is more equitable and fair probably for everyone, but also not something that they had to do. So just want to recognize that, and happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Aubrey about the MOA? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of approving the MOA, show of hands, please. Okay, approved, thank you. Next, I would entertain a motion to approve a data sharing agreement with Brown University Annenberg Institute for participation in student mental health and MTSS district network. So moved by Jean, seconded by Claire. Comments, questions, discussion?
Just clarify, so there are two of these networking opportunities here on the agenda. This is the first one. And they just both happened to come about in the time since our last meeting. Just specific to this one, the Annenberg Institute out of Brown University. We've had a long-standing relationship with the Rhode Island Superintendents Association. Annenberg has a number of locations throughout the country. They have one locally here at Brown. They focus on research and best practices and a lot in the world of education. So they've been good partners to us. They run these networks in so sometimes there's a special education network. There's been one on math at the high school level last few years. I'm trying to think there's the Rhode Island evaluation model. This one specifically that we were invited to join is on student mental health, and specifically we are thinking it can help us as we are kind of entering a new phase with our MTSS work here. As you know, for the past few years we've had an MTSS coordinator at the district level, and we will not going forward.
Does anyone have any questions or comments about this agreement? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the agreement, show of hands, please. Next, I would entertain a motion to approve a sergeant-centric contract for professional learning facilitation. So moved by Kevin, second by Jean. Does anyone have any questions?
Another one put forward, as you see by Mr. Bellucci, this is just help. Sergeant Center will be providing some personnel to help with different professional development activities throughout the year, but you can certainly answer any other questions.
Does anybody have any other questions about this contract? Now, obviously all of these contracts are in the packet. Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of approving this agreement, show of hands, please. Thank you. Next, I'd entertain a motion to approve a contract with Throughline Learning for participation in a district network for professional development on the use of AI. So moved by Tim, seconded by Jean.
So again, this would be the second of those network opportunities I mentioned. At Throughline just happened to reach out to us with some other local districts to see if we'd be interested. They were formerly known as Fuse RI years ago. They focus mostly on blended learning as districts were rolling out one-to-one devices. Their focus has now shifted to AI in the current world, and their work around that looks a little different now. They facilitate these district networks. We would be joining a district of 4 to 5, a network with 4 to 5 other districts, just sharing and collaborating around our best practice, our current practices. I think we have some good things on our end. You have a good firm policy in place at the district level, and pockets of work I think that are taking place, throughout our various schools. So this would just allow us to kind of kind of see what else other local districts are doing. There is a slight cost to this one, and my proposal with this, as you can see, would be to take this out of fund balance, as all of our other professional development funds have been allocated.
Anyone have any comments or questions about this? None? Okay. All those in favor of approving this contract with Through Line Learning? Show of hands, please. Okay. Next, I would entertain a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation for part-time substitute rates for the 2026-2027 school year to be effective beginning August 21st of 2026. So by Jean, and by Melissa.
This is just something I annually like to make sure that we're reviewing. These would be any of the positions that we have that fall outside of either an administrative role with individual contracts or our bargaining unit contracts. So we call these our, part-time substitute roles. And one of the key things, particularly in Rhode Island, is to review these the past few years annually, because Rhode Island has been rolling out changes to our minimum wage. Okay, so coming up January 1st, minimum wage is going to increase to $17 an hour. There are a few of these rates that I am suggesting we change to keep up with that minimum wage change. And then on the subsequent, just based on if you break down the hours that people would work in those roles throughout the day.
The actual rates.
So the rates.
But they'll be published. Or no?
I think this is on the backup, right, Amy?
I saw your memo, but I didn't see
Yeah,
that, so I just
the-
want to make
the
sure
rates
it's
are
in. It's in there?
Yeah,
Okay,
okay,
no, because sometimes I
It's
don't get this
separate
thing.
pages.
Yeah, okay, cool. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, anything in black are our current rates, and obviously I think you follow anything in red is what I'm suggesting we change to keep up with the coming change to Rhode Island minimum wage.
Does anyone have any questions about that or about the rates or anything else for Tom on this? Okay, then all those in favor of approving his recommended rates, show of hands, please. I just wanted to that's next, I would entertain a motion to approve the homeschool request that was in your packet. So moved by Jean, seconded by Claire. All those in favor? Show of hands. You. Almost there. Next, I would entertain a motion to approve a bid award for classroom management to Securely. So moved by Claire, seconded by Will. Is there any?
Securely is a program that allows us to manage our device, essentially Chromebooks. So there's a few things that allows teachers, they would get an overview as to what page, if you will, if they're doing something in class that students are on, so they can make sure students are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing, but also for the grades that take devices home, which for us would be middle and high school. Securely does notify if students are attempting to do something that they should not be doing their devices. Mr. Shy, before he left, had put this in motion to renew. We went out to bid these services, and there's a memo from Ms. Baker has taken the lead on this since Mr. Shy departed. And you see her recommendation there.
Can I ask a couple of things about this? I think we need it for sure. They're very tied to Google Classroom. I mean, it's essentially supporting Google Classroom as I understand it. Yes. Securely. Yes, I mean, they make a big deal about that. I mean, it's only a few days ago, Google Classroom made a bunch of pretty significant announcements. So first of all, they opened their platform to all K through 12 students. It used to be high school only. It's what you would expect from the world's leader in surveillance capitalism. Gemini can now work directly from the students' course materials. Gemini Classroom connects into Gemini Notebook. Google has added contextual student prompts. So it's embedding, all kinds of functionality that didn't exist last year that purports to, ask more of students so that they can't, just mindlessly copy things and, have text auto-generated and stuff like that, but when you really read it, and it's even in the securely proposal, used the wrong way or without a more firm guidance, let's say, it has the potential to give teachers an out so that the AI can recommend prompts. I mean, one of the things Google talks about a lot is it can take your lesson plan for the day, for the week, and, you know, change it and, you know, basically automate it and run it. So anyway, I'm not a big fan of Google Classroom, so I just want to call out the fact that I think it requires more oversight. So what they do on a security basis is obviously very important, stuff like that. But as they try to swim upstream securely as a firm and add more value, their integration with Google Classroom has become their reason for being. And Google Classroom, we need to watch like a hawk. So there's that. And then the other thing is just, it does make a reference to, and I know this was Chris's lived experience, and maybe Will, this can be part of your future too, but it does spit out a lot of data. And, you know, there are a lot of parents in the district and a lot of other folks, educators, I would assume, that would like to see a little bit more about the data. So Securely can track exactly what's being used the most and who's logging in when and where and stuff like that. So in terms of minutes and hours and stuff like that, I think there's a whole data advantage that Securely provides. I don't know who all that flows to. I know I would like to see a little bit more of it. I'm sure we should probably figure that out about how that data is best aggregated and consumed, but I think it's very valuable. And I don't think it's been systematically managed that way. Nobody's fault. So anyway, that's an aspect of Securely that maybe we can do more with.
To keep in mind, we don't have this isn't a contract yet, so if there are other safeguards that we wanna put into place or things that we've, you know, that you're thinking about, let me know, because when we review the contract, we,
Yeah.
you know, try to include those things
Appreciate that.
and or add those safeguards.
You've got the number 3 player in AI trying to catch up, and they're going after the school, you know,
Very lucrative,
sector. Absolutely, absolutely. So anyway. And what happened today? ChatGPT announced ChatGPT Teen today, which is horrifying if you know that. So check that out in the Times and the Journal. It'll make your hair stand on end. Thank you.
Yes, sorry.
I did not see, in the, when I was looking at, I see the previous, was not looking at the right thing about, like alerting about if students are doing things that are unusual. I just wanted to, so that would be the kind of thing that would Securely have that capability.
Yeah.
And then we would have a policy or something attached to how that would be.
Yeah, and it is, there's a lot of case law around this, like what you're actually allowed to monitor
Yep.
when a student is at home and how you're allowed to consider it. And so it's kind of a grayish and developing legal area, but definitely, you know, when we look at the contract, I think that's something for us to think about, and then yes, think about policy around it.
It's, and one of the things that Securely talks about in their proposal is they have enhanced their ability to go in and block, you know, individual level sites for individual students and stuff like that by classroom. So if classroom A wanted to do something a little different than classroom B, you know, it's got more, you know, nimble blocking capability. So
While they're at school, totally legal. When they're at
it's
home and on their
the
own
home
network, there's, you know, there's case law about it being like a district issued advice, but on your own Wi-Fi and in your house, and there's, you know, there's been a bunch of cases where, you know, sometimes like cameras are turned on while you're at your house, like could the school see? Yeah, so there's a whole, you know, you think about like the amount of potential invasiveness that is in monitoring.
but are you saying, I mean, a kid can't go home and watch HBO Max on their Chromebook because they're outside the school?
Well, again, I think that it's a gray area, right? And so there are lines, like, yes, they may not, and you may decide that you don't want them to be able to access on the district issued Chromebook, like certain sites. That is permissible, but then the degree to which you are allowed to like monitor, you know,
what you're
even
doing.
with GoGuardian, you know, being able to like turn on a video, or if they.
Yep.
So there are, you know, lines there that you probably want to set.
But there's no diminution in our ability to suppress things on the device itself. It's about monitoring.
No, it's more about the degree to which you are like monitoring what's going on
Watching
with
what they're
the
doing.
student in their home.
That's a
And
good
so it's
privacy.
a, you know, there's like privacy rights that you do have an increased right to privacy even on a district issued device in your own home versus at
Yep.
school.
And those are the kinds of things I think that just in terms of, I'm glad that that probably shouldn't be surprising, that the law is also concerned about something I'm concerned about. But just that those are also things that are so subjective, like, and if we don't have good policy that there are certain, like, you know, minoritized students can be evaluated, watched in different ways, certain information can be, you know, punished for, you know, interest in certain information would be punished in certain ways. So just just because we have the tools, that's just the beginning of protecting the schools.
Yeah, and there's been an uptick in legal action around all of this, so something for us to look at and think about when looking at the contract and potential policy.
I think sometimes we get into sort of like just more surveillance, more information is better, and that's.
I thought about that since we had that successful letter to Meta, right? I mean, that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was very successful. We ought to get everybody together and write one to Google, because what they're doing in the classroom is troubling when you read about it.
But we've always had, I mean, it had Google Classrooms for every grade.
Yep.
For every, right, so.
Premium, they embed themselves and they make it, you know, they come in and they start to do the plumbing, you know,
Oh, my gosh.
the basic stuff, and then they spread
That is,
into
There's a
learning.
word that I won't say.
and stage capitalism.
Well, yes, but it's a less nice word.
But that's how, that, all of this is very helpful, and thank you, Robert, for. I should assume if I have a concern. A concern.
I'm always glad to hear it and make note of it, but this is definitely a hot topic at the moment, so.
Thank you, and thank you for that, all that.
Does anyone else have any questions about this particular bid award? Okay, and all those in favor of the bid award, show hands please. Perfect.
Thank you. We will work on the contract next.
Thank you. Last action on our agenda, you see, approval of amendment to the superintendent's employment contract. So that goes back to our earlier discussion, where we completed the superintendent's evaluation. And for this year, and based on that, the results of that evaluation, I would entertain a motion to amend Dr. Kenworthy's contract to, include a 2% salary increase to be effective on his start date anniversary 2026. So moved by Claire, seconded by Will. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, happy to be moving forward with
Yes.
Dr. Henry, and grateful for everyone who gave their time for evaluative.
We thought about a car, but then you live on Blueberry
Yeah.
Drive, so we said, you know, what the hell.
Sorry.
Schoolers, those.
I was gonna say, maybe,
No.
you know, maybe when we get to the next,
Have them.
I'm over the age of 16.
But you know, you're really gonna upset about it.
James.
I would wear a helmet too, I promise.
I would like that you would, use your brain.
All those in favor of contract amendment, show of hands. Thank you kids so much, so you're probably. Okay. All right. Made it through all those action items. All right, next we have two policies on our agenda for a second read. Policies 10-200, use of electronic devices in schools. I don't know that there have been any changes since last time. And policy 8500, which is the use of e-bikes and motorized mobility devices. So, Mr. Munoz, do we have anything
No,
significant?
These are both second reads. Nothing has changed since the last time.
Okay.
The device policy, you might remember, is just reflecting in a couple of places language that RIDE has asked all districts to put in there. So no material changes to the policy at all. And e-bike similarly, I mean, we put this forward in June as a first read. We started to work on it, I think, in April in the policy committee and stuff like that. So I think this is very important. You know, many of you have probably noticed more vehicles around town. With kids this summer, I see them all the time. I see scooters the most, but I see e-bikes and stuff like that. They fly. And I think this is a real safety and soundness policy that I commend to everybody to pass it tonight and get it in place and stuff like that, because it's everything from the obvious safety issues to the batteries sitting baking in the hot noonday sun to what's age appropriate and, you know, what's in the community's best interest and stuff like that. So I think it's a really important policy to pass. I don't know if you want to say anything more about the part in the policy that talks about the superintendent's.
Sure, so assuming
discretion.
if you approve, there is a portion here that would then allow me to establish how we're going to enforce this policy essentially. So I will let you know that we had to wait for the policy to be officially approved, but my intention would be we should closely follow what the law states, that these should not be ridden by students under the age of 16. So I would propose that we prohibit the use of e-bikes and these other devices at our elementary and middle school. Allowing them obviously at the high school for students older than 16. As long as they are wearing a helmet, also another requirement for anyone under the age of 21.
But on that student safety requirements, it has all students wearing e-bikes. Goes on. I mean, does that have to say on school grounds? Because can we dictate what students do when they're not, like follow all traffic laws? Shouldn't that say on school grounds? Because we can't really dictate what we'll do off of school grounds.
Well, that's what the policy says. I mean, they can't bring it on school grounds. So, you know, it's obviously trying to deter kids from trying to go to and from school. And
Right, so.
park it in the woods. I don't know what they would do.
Are you thinking that it's written in too broad of language?
Make that amendment and say on.
What would you like to say?
Just for the student safety requirements, I think it should say on school grounds, because I don't think we have jurisdiction to regulate what kids are doing off of school grounds. That was the only thing.
It says, well, on page 1 under definitions, I mean, we did talk about it. It says school
So-
property includes school buildings, grounds, parking lots, athletic facilities. So it specifies what the covered geography is. Does that work?
I don't think there's harm in adding
I-
it, or what it's worth. You could have passed it just with that amendment.
Okay.
Yes, students may ride e-bikes, I'm sorry, all students using e-bikes on school grounds. Or, I mean, that RIGL, I mean, that's a state law, so it could be after that.
But we don't have,
Yeah.
We can't get them in trouble, or
Yeah.
we can't if they.
right? They're not gonna get in trouble at school because they did something,
Of course.
2 streets away.
I mean, just also, I'm fine to make that
Yeah.
amendment. The second paragraph on page 1 also says, first of all, this applies to everybody who's visiting schools even. That's where it starts to talk about EGPF buildings and grounds. So we'll amend it to modify that based on your comment. I think that's good. And I just call attention to also, because we did talk about this with our legal counsel too. When we say e-bikes, we're talking about scooters, skateboards, hoverboards, one-wheel devices, mini bikes, similarly powered devices, anything that's not human powered, because there's all manner of these things. So I think that's really important, but that would literally mean, you know, if a DoorDash guy gets a call from the high school that he's not supposed to and comes flying by on, you know, his Jetson scooter, that he has to, you know, abide by the same rules. So.
That's.
Okay.
It takes some. Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, for DoorDash drivers, or
Yeah,
we shouldn't have to say, don't break laws.
yes.
But I'm thinking just in terms of like, just courtesy, kind of like, as for parents who are planning how their kids are gonna go to school and that kind of stuff, that
Yep.
they be. Just,
A surprise.
yeah, I mean,
Well, this is why we want to get in the hand.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think maybe even just sending it out on the.
I-
Yeah, I'll include it in my
Yes.
follow-up, absolutely.
So the back to school communications, so people are
Yeah,
aware.
with a link to the policy.
Yeah,
Right,
that's,
I just think with all of the traffic coming in and out of our schools, particularly elementary and middle school. At arrival and dismissal time.
oh, it's a very sound safety. thing. It's just whether people are gonna have to be like, oh, no, I have to fly a different thing.
Yes,
Also, yeah, I mean, especially in like when there's construction.
all right,
Thank
so if we're thinking we're adding an amendment to 8,500, I will, since they're both second reads, they can both go up for a vote today. So there's no changes to the first and minimal to the second, I think we'll go ahead and vote on them tonight if everyone is amenable. So I'll entertain a motion to first approve policy 10,200 use of electronic devices in schools, revised policy second read. So moved by Tim, seconded by Melissa. Further discussion on that policy? All those in favor of approving that policy, show of hands, please. Thank you. And what are we doing? Do you just want me to say with amendment, or do you want me to read it?
I think we should read with amendment to include on school grounds. Under the student safety requirements. For all students using e-bikes on school grounds must wear helmets as required by RIGL 31-19-3.
We'll go with the first one.
Yeah.
Okay, and so then I would entertain a motion.
Can we say school property just because that's
Yep.
the
Yeah, no,
earlier reference
Okay.
there? That actually would keep you from
Okay, get it?
yeah, that's better.
writing it in a few other places.
I would entertain a motion to approve policy 8,500, use of e-bikes and motorized mobility devices to include the amendment on school property under the student safety requirements. So moved by Melissa, second by Jean. Further discussion? All those in favor? All right. Policy approved. Next, I would entertain a motion to adjourn, ladies and gentlemen. Then moved by Jean, seconded by Kevin. All those in favor? Thank you so much, everybody. We are adjourned.
You?
Thank you.
All right, final thing. But another one for you.